Hey everyone, this is Randy from the Medical School Directory, here today to do an introductory video on how to use the Medical School Directory website. I noticed that I've been gaining a little bit more traffic recently, and I want to put this demo video out for you guys so you can best take advantage of this resource. So here on the home page, you can see that we have the main features, which includes the map that you guys are probably most familiar with, but there's also two extra tools in here. For example, there's a search tool that is really good for filtering out based on school-specific criteria and metrics. And there's also the timeline, which is really good for walking you through the whole application process and telling you exactly what you need for every step along the way. So here, let's first go into the map section. The map section is really good if you want to see the geographic breakdown of every single medical school in the country. So here you can see all these map markers represent one medical school, and they're color coded. So the blue means that they are an MD public school, the green means they are an MD private, and the red means that they are a DO school. The first feature that's pretty cool is when you have these regions that have a lot of clusters of schools in big cities and such, you can go ahead and zoom in and it'll give you a magnifying feature so that you can find the one that you need. Another cool feature is that by just clicking on these map markers, it will actually take you to the school specific website, which is really important for when you're finding information out about the school itself, but also about changes or differences in their requirements. So say, for example, they have different letters of recommendation requirements or maybe different prerequisites. As you can see down below here, it's pretty much all the same information, just listed out in list format. But I would recommend that if you want to search schools based on different criterias, that you go over here and take a look at our search feature. So as you can see here, the search has all the same information, but it is categorized into a big spreadsheet. Here on the very left, you see whether they are an MD or a DO school, the name, the type, whether they're public or private, the state that they're in, and then their LizzyM scores. So for those of you that don't know, the LizzyM is pretty much kind of a cumulative score based on your GPA and your MCAT, and I used it for two folds. First is that it's just a really easy number to calculate and use rather than comparing two different metric numbers. And the second reason is that AAMC has copyright information to all the MD schools, so I could not use it on my website here. But anyhow, let's do a mock filter, and I can show you guys exactly what to filter out for. So as you guys can see, I took you to the there's a link that takes you to the LizzyM score calculator on SDN's website, and we'll put in some arbitrary numbers. Let's just say a 3.7 and a 5.10, and you get a LizzyM score of about 68. So then you go back to Med School Directory, and from the LizzyM, we can now filter. Let's say we'll go from 64 to 72. 72. And we're going to be looking for MD schools. And then over here, we have an important number as well, and this is the out-of-state matriculant percentage. It's a ranking number from 1 to 5, from 1 being the least out-of-state friendly to 5 being the most out-of-state friendly. Now you might ask how I got these metrics. I just used 20% brackets. So say, for example, a 1 would mean that out of their whole med school class, from 0 to 20% are from out of state, whereas for a 5, 80 to 100% of their class is from out of state. So for our search purposes, we will say that we are looking for schools that are out of state friendly, so a 3 to 5 metric would be good to use here. And so now, as you can see, we have these very rudimentary search criterias that have narrowed our search down from a total of 184 schools to 32. So then from here on, you can now go into every school website and find out more information about whether or not you want to apply or whether or not you would be competitive. So that's really important to use when you guys are making a school list, because as you guys know, the average applicant applies to about 15 to 20 schools, and you want to make sure that you're not just wasting your money and that you actually have a good shot at getting in and that the school is a right fit. So that's all for the search function. In this last section, I want to introduce you guys to the MSD timeline. And as you guys can see here, I've provided some text box information about all the parts that you will need in your application before you can apply. To start off, there are some information about prerequisite courses that you need, as well as some information about the MCAT exam when you decide to take it. Here I've introduced an interesting little box that has the statistics, raw statistics based on just GPA and MCAT and your success rate. However, I do want you guys to take this with a huge grain of salt because there is so much more that goes into a successful applicant than just GPA and your MCAT. And a perfect example is here is that you see even the people who have the highest stats don't all get into medical school. And that is because schools use GPA and MCAT as an initial indicator, but afterwards what they're going to be looking more at is looking at you as a holistic applicant and looking at your extracurricular activities that you have been involved in throughout undergrad. So I've divided it up into 5 main categories, and you have 1, volunteering or community service, 2 is clinical exposure, and then you have leadership, shadowing, and research, and I also included a blurb about miscellaneous activities. And you will see that when you click on these sub boxes, it gives you a lot of good information, not only about how you can gain these sorts of opportunities, but also why it makes you a better applicant, which is a lot more important to write about when you have those descriptions in your activities section of your application. So moving on after that, I've included some information about letters of recommendation, and that can be a little tricky because every school might have a little bit of a different requirement. For example, for the most part, MD schools will want 2 science professors and 1 non-science, whereas DO schools will always want a letter from a DO physician. Here is some more information regarding the MD versus DO path. I'm not going to get more into it, but I might talk about it more in a future video if you guys want me to. So moving on to the last section here is the actual application timeline. For those of you that are unfamiliar, applying to medical school takes about a year in and of itself, and it usually starts off in June, around June. That's when the application opens. However, you are expected to have all your transcripts, MCAT, and all the other components of your application completed before that time. Then it's broken down into kind of a 3-part section. At first, you have your primary application, which is different depending on whether you apply MD or DO, and that'll consist of your personal statement, as well as up to 15 activities that you can write about in regards to your extracurriculars. The second component is a secondary application, which is school specific. Every school has a different secondary application that they want you to complete, and these are usually made up of supplemental essays. Lastly, you have the medical school interview, which is an in-person interview that can differ between traditional one-on-one formats, or you may have a panel or multiple mini interviews. And here I've included some information about how you should prepare for your interview, and I have other blog posts that gets more into this. To finish it off, we have some information regarding the post-interview or after you have interviewed and what you should expect, as well as some information on the different letters that you can send to a medical school. And also I've included a little bit about what you should be working on to change if you were an unsuccessful applicant and how you can improve your chances the following cycle. So that's all the information that I have. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you can use this resource better to your advantage. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you next time.